Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. Always good to be with you. It's been 1 week since we know I'm not with you. Due to some other unforeseen technical issues. Good morning, Phoebe Francis in Dubai. How are you?
Good morning, Graham. Good morning, Mohammed. Wonderful to be here and greetings to all of you.
Mohammed, how are
Hi
you?
from Bahrain, everybody. I'm doing very well and happy to see you again.
Always great to be with you. I want to suggest this, and this I will confess that this little idea of what we're going to talk about today has come from a discussion that we each had um, in talking about what we're going to talk about. So the suggestion that we have today is we talk about leadership in different cultures. And it's more specifically, and this was the suggestion of Muhammad, what happens when a leader moves from one culture that he's been used to, that he grew up in, that he's lived most of his life in, to another culture. Now, in some countries, that will likely not happen. Lots of people in the United States, stay in the United States. Lots of people in Australia, stay in Australia. Lots of people in, anyway, I'm not going to go through them all, but in the Middle East, there is more likelihood that people will move to work in, be part of another culture. That culture may be in the Middle East. That culture may be somewhere beyond the Middle East. And we know, of course, that in the Middle East, particularly, that people come from other countries to the significantly diverse of countries like UAE, Bahrain, more so growing now KSA, Saudi, but the countries like Bahrain and Qatar and Kuwait and Oman, they have a significant expat population, correct? Yes.
Yes.
People who are coming from other countries. And those people who are coming from other countries may be coming in a leadership role, whether it's a more senior or lower level. So, what do we think might be some problems? First of all, what problems might there be for a leader in a different culture? Muhammad.
Well, let me start by saying it's going to be a problem if you don't prepare for it. Because one thing's for sure, in the contract that you were brought in as an expert and you're going to lead a project or something, everything is there except how to deal with the people you're going to meet. It's not there and it's not calculated or considered even. It's your task, it's your homework to do. So you come there, you just by becoming, an expert in this new culture doesn't mean things will fall in place. And it doesn't mean people are going to oppose you because you are not from this culture. We just need to understand each other before we work with each other. So I hope that was a good introduction.
Yeah, look,
Thank,
it's not just a matter of knowing how to get to work in this new culture or understanding different language barriers. It's not about those simple things for lifestyle, but it goes much deeper than that. Phoebe.
I just want to add one point, like how we define culture at this context.
Yeah.
So I just want to bring one of my definition is culture is how we do things around here and how that have an impact because the culture of how we do things around here in other places may be slightly different. And how can we learn about that? How can we be more sensitive towards that? So I just like to ask a question to you. How can a new person coming into a new geography to lead a role, how can they understand the culture? What are some of the steps which they can uh, take in order to be more prepared in that way?
Okay. Before we get down into those very important details, I just want to make the point that, or further take the point that you made about awareness of culture. That's the first part, the awareness that there is a different culture. And some years ago, in fact, getting close now to 20 years ago, certainly 17 years ago, when I first went to the Middle East, and I heard a television program interview, it was in the BBC, with a man who was very prominent in business in Bahrain. And Muhammad would know the family. He's of the Canoe family in Bahrain. It's a, yeah, Muhammad's not him. Michelle Canoe,
It's Kano.
yeah. And he was asked about, from a member of the audience in this television program, but the preface of the question was of these three words. So in the Arab culture, and he then went on to ask the question, and the response from Michelle Canoe was very transformative, if you like, and insightful for me, because he said, well, when you ask about the culture, the Arab culture, I need to ask you which Arab culture you are referring to. Now, that opened up for me something which I, like this person who asked the question, never considered. And now, with my experience in the Middle East, not only am I aware of the different cultures between the countries of the GCC, the 8 countries of the GCC, of Oman, of UAE, Saudi, Kuwait, Bahrain, Qatar. That not only are they different, but within those countries there is difference. And this point has been made to me several times that in the UAE there's a different culture from Dubai to Abu Dhabi. Oh, so now it gets a bit tricky. The first part, before we start learning about them, the very first part is understanding that there is a culture in whichever place you go. And there may even be microcultures within certain.
And in fact, Phoebe posed another dimension. So this new leader and this new culture has two cultures to deal with, and one culture is people coming from different ethnicities and different backgrounds. That is, like international, multinational. But the other thing is the organizational culture this new leader is working in. The organizational culture, how things happen here, this is where everybody, despite their different ethnicities and backgrounds and origins, they all share this organizational culture. But the leader has to learn both.
Absolutely.
Where people come from and where people agree, how people agree to work in this organization. Regardless, he has to deal with all these. So I hope this episode will give, from the leadership challenge perspective, what can the leader expect and what can the leader do about it.
Yeah. Before Phoebe takes that up, let me just make this point that as you've said, when you come into a country in the Middle East, because of the diverse expat population that's working there,
Yes.
and their culture to the organization, and then they have to fit in with make the organizational culture, right? And so what the leader has to deal with is not only the country culture or the microculture of the area, but the culture that arises that then becomes the organizational culture because of the background of the people who are in that area. This is not straightforward, is it? This is not so straightforward.
Yes.
Yeah. Again, what comes to my mind is when we see like the organizational culture aspect. The one thing which come to my mind is the way employees speak to each other. What is said and what is not said. Second is, for example, the implied expectations when challenge arise in workplace, what a leader should do. And quite often that varies. What is the expectation which people are expecting, especially within the organization. And again, a leader also have to manage the board which who is appointing him, or his seniors. What are their expectations? So one is that upward expectation and downward expectation.
Yeah.
And another aspect is about how in general the community feels about work, and how that interplays in that. One example I just want to consider is the time, the expectation of timing. How the
Yeah.
timing varies when we come from,
How it
for
is
example,
how it's perceived. Like, yeah, what's your eight
yeah,
o'clock and what is my 8 o'clock?
8 o'clock. Yeah. So what is that? Then another aspect which comes is permissibility of making mistakes. How much mistakes is tolerated and how much is not.
Yeah.
Yeah, so these are things which are coming to my mind, and
I,
I think
I
understanding it will be crucial in the early days.
I remember a story I just happened in my company before, and we were invited for an important meeting, cross-departmental meeting for the expansion project. So we are going to go to another department and meet people from different departments. And the person who is in charge of the meeting is the head of the project, which is European, and he's European. We started the meeting, all of us, we were there on time, all of us were there. And he started going through the actions. And then he said, done, 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 done. 10 minutes, boom, meeting over, finished. He said, okay, see you next meeting. I don't know. I mean, I was thinking, where is the rapport building? Where is the socialization at the beginning? Where are the things that in my Arab perspective, we are very comfortable with, and we like socializing at the beginning, and building rapport is important in the meeting. And yet, he achieved the objectives of the meeting. And to me, the positive part was, oh, I hope all our meetings are as effective and as rapid as this one. But I also missed the human connection because rarely we meet other departments. And I just wanted to have some, that's me, but that's me.
Here's one of the. I'm going back to a little bit. Clearly, that's, and I'm aware of that relationship towards or how locals like to talk about things and socialise and how's your family and so on. Yeah, always that happens. um, and whereas other people from different cultures want to get straight into the point and do it and move on. I understand that. The point really is that person who was new to the culture, I want them to be aware of the advantages at times of interacting in rapport building and doing that just to build the trust. So I'm very proud of, pleased with a testimonial that was written, a comment, let's just say, was written by a woman in a program of the Leadership Challenge that I did in Sudan. And I often use these words that she gave to me, she wrote to me, and it was really very impressed, she said, with the way you respected our Prophet, peace be upon him, our Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. And this to me is fundamental. This is your faith. If you're a Muslim, this is your faith. And I must do things that are absolutely respectful of your faith. And as a facilitator and a trainer, when I'm in a training room starting the day off, one of the first questions that I ask the participants is, so prayer time, how about, is 12:30 okay? And so there are many times when people look at me and, oh, he understands. Yeah. So even just indicating that and a few other little things shows, I'm sure, I hope, people in the room who are Muslim, the Islam faith, that I respect their faith and I have a connection to their belief system, their beliefs, their religious beliefs. And I think that builds rapport, builds understanding, builds respect. As a leader, to be indicating that I understand a number of things about your faith. I understand that you fast during Ramadan, and I understand all things about that, and I respect that. That is, I think, a real starting point for someone coming in at a whatever level from another part of the world into a Muslim country. And this then builds relationships. One of my key points about working with people in another culture is that every culture wants one thing. They want other things as well, but there's one thing that's common, and that thing is respect. whichever culture,
Absolutely.
when I show respect, we start to build relationships, don't we? Leading that
Yes.
leadership
Yes.
challenge, leadership is a relationship.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I just want to bring that first practice, the modeling the way. How am I modeling that? How am I bringing that into my workplace? And this is an example which I reflect. We had a new head of HR who came in, and one thing he always do is to weekly bring, let us have breakfast together.
Yeah.
And that changed the way in which, so we had the Arabic food coming in, and people all come together. Everyone in the department comes together in the morning. Let us, come everyone, let us have half an hour to have that. Let us stop the work. Nothing will happen after that. So that was modeling the way in a way in which he was building the connection process. And we realize that okay, even though we are working in the same floor, we are not knowing the fellow colleague who is sitting on the other side of the window, and this brought in that connection building process. And
In,
that was an eye opener for me from my
in
perspective.
my case, my colleagues were inviting me to masala dosa. Okay. That morning, bomb of energy, really. That's it is called one of the best, by the way, one of the best breakfast by some of the universities in America. It's very nutritious anyway. But can I take it to the next level, if I may, my friends? So inspire a shared vision. The second practice. We often look at cultures as dividers because they separate us. Okay, this is where we are different. Uh, but that doesn't mean we shouldn't explore where we are the same. Okay, so what's combining us rather than what's separating us? There is a study done. Again, in my field, public speaking, one of the prominent speakers said this once. He said, when I want to look for a good topic for my audience, okay, when I want to know what my audience, cross culture everywhere, they are concerned about, and I can address that in my keynotes, I go down to children. I speak to children. I notice when I speak to children, often their desires or their opinions are almost the same, even if they come from different ethnicities, cultures, background, because at that level, they have universal outlook and universal, human desires. But the more we grow, our ethnicities, our cultures, our societies, it gets complicated when we grow. So if you want to know what makes humans humans, and they want to, what are their main concerns or their main ambitions, etc., ask children. Of course, who we work with in the organization are not children, but let's speak to that human part which we all share. If we share that, we can use Inspire a Shared Vision as our second tool when we deal with different cultures.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I think with a couple of the other practices, and I'm going to talk specifically, really about um, enable others to act and also encourage the heart. Let me start with enable others to act. This we know is about empowering others, encouraging them. And I'm going to make this suggestion that I know in some cultures, the individuals that we're going to encourage will find it difficult because they've been contained in a particular working space. By that, I mean what they can and cannot do. And if we as a leader enable them to act, we encourage them, if we try to empower them, sometimes culturally that is an issue. Sometimes, not always. And we must always be aware when we're talking about the different cultures that the same rules are not going to apply to the different cultures. But sometimes they will feel a little bit difficult in this situation. The other one that I mentioned was encourage the heart. Some cultures find it difficult to give someone encouragement. People find it difficult to do this. So from their culture, if I'm coming in as a leader from a culture where giving encouragement is natural, normal, and we know it should be done, but the person receiving that may initially find it a little difficult to receive that encouragement. They might just think, well, I'm just doing my job, or I'm a little bit hesitant to accept that I respect and I value the work that they're doing. Can you relate to this, Phoebe? Is this resonating a little bit with you?
It is true, and that is something which I also connect with our practice, challenge the process. You know what? Again, when in a cultural context, it is the meaning making process which makes the key difference. What meaning am I making in that context for each word? And sometimes that translation of meaning takes time, or maybe people are ignorant or not in their awareness at that point of time. And that is something which a leader may try to understand. And that is also unique because, you know, when you are coming from a different perspectives and you see a different way of working, this can also lead to challenging the process. Practice, one of the leadership challenge practice, and this can lead to better innovation in the workplace. So, but again, as leader, are we prepared for that to make sure that our meaning making processes are getting aligned so that, you know, that conflict related issues can be reduced? Because when meaning making goes wrong, there is always a chance for friction arising in the workplace, and that is sometimes impacting enabling others to act, you know, as Graham mentioned. So enabling others, sometimes you may see it different in different cultures. And if we can align the meaning making process for each, sometimes the words used, I had an experience in which I used a phrase and that phrase is understood entirely differently, and was experienced as disrespectful. But what I used was to highlight, you know, how it brings hardships to people. So sometimes that you know, the context and the meaning making
Yeah.
is critical
Yes.
in the
Yes.
cultural realm.
Because I noticed this years ago when I first moved to the UAE, and I'm really trying to be careful not to align this with any one culture, but I think it applies to more than one. And that was that there was a sense, culturally, a sense of entitlement from certain people. Because I am of this culture, I am entitled to this happening to me. I'm entitled to what I should receive. And in those days, there wasn't so much a recognition of promotion by merit, but rather because I am entitled to it. I am entitled to it because of who my father is, or because of who I am, or whatever. And the culture, I think, has changed a lot, certainly in the UAE, where so much more merit is recognised as being important. But for a long while, it was a sense of entitlement. And I know I should be able to get that because of who I am. So sometimes these subtle cultural barriers can impact on the way people are thinking about what they're doing. And they might look at the person next to them and say, well, you are telling him good things about him. Why don't you tell me? Well, I'm probably not telling you because you're not doing that. But you should tell me. I'll tell you.
Uh, Let me also, I got excited. Can I bring some tips from the world of public speaking? Can I do that? Yes. You know, we say there are icebreakers, okay? And definitely there is thick ice when you meet people from other cultures, and you are new to them. You come all the way from I don't know where, and you can expect there is a thick ice, not only because of cultures, but also because who is he? Why is he from outside, etc.? Why isn't there one of us? You know, one of the things I liked about my manager, my leader, which I consider consider him one of the best few I met, is he always broke the ice. One way he did it is by learning our language. All right.
Wow.
So he just picked he and Graham does this all the time. He learned what is mabruk. Mabruk means congratulations. So he doesn't say good job, well done. Anybody who does good job, he says mabruk, and he says it in his own accent, and we laugh. So number one is icebreaker, break the ice. Some of them, I heard some of them say sabah al khair. Okay, he doesn't say it in Arabic fully, which means good morning. But the moment he says that, the meeting, there is some wave, instant wave of relaxation, instant wave of, a drop in tension. And you can do that. And leadership challenge says before the five principles, five practices, it says leadership is a relationship, right? The second tip I will give, because time is running, the second tip is, guess what? Humor.
Yeah.
Guess what? How we manage our keynote, if it's 45 minutes or even if it's 10 minutes, without humor, you run a big risk if you don't use humor. Humor is proven in any culture. Humor, the laughter, is everyone's culture. All right? It's proven, it removes, reduces, and many times it drops all the defense shields your audience or your team is having potentially and hiding against you. They have their shields, they have their walls. Humor proves to be, when you make people laugh, the defense goes down and the resistance goes down, and suddenly people are ready. That's why we bring important matters in our speech right after a laughter that we have planned before. There you go. That's a bonus step in public speaking, but really it applies to a leader because he always communicates.
But here's the thing, another thing.
Yeah,
But if the leader is able to laugh at himself, that
Yeah.
going to bring him closer to others, right? Particularly when they feel
Yes.
normally the leader is up there, and so the leader can laugh at himself, and they can, he's human. This is really good. And when talking about getting to know the people and saying words in the local language, even though the pronunciation's not correct, that brings you closer to the people that you're communicating with, right? There are some words from the Quran that I say, and they are related directly to the leadership challenge. My pronunciation of Arabic is so bad that it's never recognized after some discussion, they'll get it. But my Arabic pronunciation is terrible, but it brings us together. They laugh at they appreciate what I'm trying to do. And I'm not just saying, well, you should know this. This is it. You should know this. No, I'm laughing at myself. They are laughing at me. We are building rapport. So this is so important. Phoebe, before we wrap,
yeah, and that is the fifth practice in practice, encouraging the heart. Laughter brings in that encouragement in the process, and it makes the environment at ease.
yeah,
And we can have whatever discussions, whatever areas we want to focus on in a much lighter note. So I
something,
think that's how culture affects.
yeah, and where the culture may have been such that the leader walked into his or her office, walking past the staff, and just got into his office, and that can happen in various cultures. When a leader from whichever culture he or she is from, and whichever culture the team members are from, when the leader on his or her way into the office greets the people as he's walking in, says good morning, says salam alaikum, says whatever he feels, they respect that. It builds the relationship. It breaks down barriers. So I encourage leaders in different cultures, as you've just said, Mohammed, to make these to introduce humour, but also to connect with them and build rapport. So here's one.
Yes. If I, yeah,
Please.
I'll say just my final note. Whatever we said today, of course, you relate with the thing that we are all humans at the end of the day. And if you can touch upon that, you will be successful. So, one of the things I'm very much attached to the leadership challenge is that it's based on a study. The 5 leadership practices of exemplary leaders is are based on a 40 years of study across millions of human beings across the globe, despite their ethnicities, origins, language. It was not done in a laboratory in the United States just because the authors are from the United States. No, it was done across all the globe, from different backgrounds, different origins, different cultures, different religions. And unanimously, it was brought to these 5 practices. Of course, they had to word what the people were expressing, what made them, what made you be a best leader. Okay. What were you doing when you were at your best? That was the question. Okay. What were you doing when you were at the best as a leader? So the 5 practices are really your tool directly to go to what makes all of us, connect.
And also, if I could just add a little bit to that, the characteristics of admired leaders, very solid. The top 4 apply across all the cultures that have been surveyed. The order may be different, but the top 4 are there. All cultures want their leaders to be honest. All. They want their leader to be inspiring. They want that. They want them to be competent. So, these are well researched, but they still apply to all cultures. Look, I know there are nuances in different cultures, even in the Middle East. I've been aware of this. Here's one nuance. In Oman, every Omani man I meet says, "I want to invite you to my home." I'm sure you've had this experience, Mohammed. And
Yes.
I mentioned this to an Omani man once, and he said, "You know what? Even at the mosque on Friday," he said, "if I meet someone, I'll say, 'I want to invite you to my home.'" Then in
All
all
the time. Yeah.
my years in the UAE, no Emirati said that he wanted to invite me to his home. It doesn't upset me. It doesn't concern me. It's not a problem. But it's just a cultural difference. We are all still wonderful, beautiful people. We all need leadership. We all are leaders. But there are some subtle differences along the way. But, Phoebe, final comment from you before we wrap up. This conversation, which could go on, there's so many levels to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is, understand what meaning are the people associating with. So, for example, as you mentioned, the invitation, which happens in a different country context, different regional context, what does that mean? And words, sometimes the words which we use, what meaning people are having with that? Are they getting? And don't sit on the assumptions which we may have. Check on the assumptions which people may have. Feel free to ask questions. So that leads to, again, seeing how we practice the 5 leadership practices in our space. And always, as Mohammed highlighted, bring humor, encourage that heart. What can you do to make someone smile? And try to do that. And that will bring that, cultural understanding into a much closer space.
Absolutely. And the smile is universal. Every culture. Well said. Gentlemen, we could go on, but we're not going to today. This has opened up an interesting and I hope valuable discussion and provoked interest in those who are listening to us now. But I just want to say that we should respect every culture. There is value in all the cultures that we are working with and maybe not yet working with. There's value in that what they bring to this very rich tapestry of cultures and behaviours around the world. Gentlemen, my very best wishes to you for the coming week, and I will look forward to being with you again at this time next week. Thank you so much, gentlemen. And as Phoebe always,
Thank you.
like us.
Yeah, friends, don't forget, subscribe, share your comments, And you always can find how you can reach out to us in case you need support for leadership development, cultural sensitivity development. We are here to support you, and we have email provided in the comments, so reach out.
Thank you very much. Have a great day.